Welcome back to another episode of the Bible from Scroll to Screen. The Holy Bible we have today is basically two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The earliest form of the Old Testament was something that took shape in the Jewish communities over several centuries. It was called the Mikra. You may know it better by its later name, the Tanakh. The Tanakh is an acronym, three Hebrew letters, each standing for one section: the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim, or in English, the Law, the Prophets, and the Writings. The first section is the Torah, the five scrolls, the foundation, the law given through Moses. You might also know these five books by their Greek name, the Pentateuch. This section was so central that it is still read in its entirety in the Jewish synagogues every single year. The second section is the Nevi'im, which is the prophets, which contains both the former prophets as well as the latter prophets. Among the latter prophets are whom we call the 12 minor prophets, but in the Tanakh, these 12 prophets were compiled together into a single scroll and simply called the 12. And finally, the last section to be formally recognized as scripture is the Ketuvim, or the writings, which contains Psalms, wisdom literature, and some history. Now, these three sections are the Tanakh, 24 scrolls in total, or 24 books. Now, here's what's interesting. When the Septuagint started taking its shape starting around 250 BC, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew scripture, a lot of splits and reorganization started happening. Here's the thing about Hebrew, it was an extraordinarily compact script. As we earlier discussed, it is written in scriptio continua without vowels, but the Greek had vowels. Moreover, Greek in general took up significantly more physical space on a scroll. For these and many other reasons, some of the scrolls which were in Hebrew a single scroll were split into two scrolls when it came to the Greek Septuagint. The books were also regrouped or rearranged more thematically by genre. So that restructuring that happened with the Greek Septuagint carried through to Latin and then to English, and that is the Christian Old Testament shape that we have today. So the Tanakh has 24 books, while the Christian Old Testament has 39 books because of the splitting. The order also changed how each collection ends. The Tanakh ends with the Chronicles, Cyrus telling the exiles, go home and rebuild. It ends with return. The Christian Old Testament, however, ends with Malachi, a prophet pointing forward in anticipation of the Messiah. I'll leave you with this interesting note. So in Luke 24:44, when Jesus refers to the scripture, he said the law, the prophets, and the Psalms. And most scholars say that he was describing the Tanakh, the law, the prophets, and the writing. Something to think about. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.